Thank you very much, Mr. President, for joining these young people from across the continent. And also, if you allow me to acknowledge, I noticed quite a few of your ministers are present. They've come and they've been with us. And we appreciate it because they're sharing some of their own experiences with young people. Before I ask you to make your opening observations, allow me to just frame what this dialogue is all about. We consider young people as the future leaders of tomorrow. But I think all too often we just use the words future leaders of tomorrow. We don't create the opportunity for them to interact with leaders of today and learn from leaders of today. And we would like to try and create spaces or a platform for the future leaders of tomorrow to get exposure to leaders of today and be informed about some of the challenges and also learn from what the leaders of today are doing successfully. So that's the first point. The second point is that we worry a bit about the fact that African solidarity has virtually died. It was there during the liberation struggle phase, and the reason why our continental institutions like the AU appear to be ineffectual to us, I think is because the people who are sitting in there do not know each other personally, and would like to facilitate for the leaders of tomorrow to form networks which allow them to know each other at a very personal level, so that when they become leaders and problems of the future arise, they can literally pick up a phone and call each other because they've got that access to each other. And we feel that that is not happening today. And I think it's also important that Africans get to know their continent. All too often we tend to travel to all sorts of other parts of the world, but we do not travel within our own continent. All our meetings are held in Africa, not outside Africa. A lot of the people who are in this room today have never been to Rwanda before. They read about Rwanda, but they've never been there, and a lot of them are surprised at what they find when they come and actually visit the country. And we would like to promote that first-hand knowledge of our own continent, so that when they become leaders of the future, not only do they know each other, but they also know the continent firsthand. They know the issues they're having to deal with. They know the issues that they should be trying to help each other solve. That's part of what we want to do. Now, having said all of this, I think that it is now commonly accepted that this country, given the challenges of 20 years ago, has made incredible progress. And I think it would be interesting for you to share parts of that journey, what made it possible to get to where this country is today, given that very difficult starting point. I think it would be useful, just as an opener, to try and share some of the experiences, the challenges that have been tackled, in what way they've been tackled, and again, this is the issue of them getting to learn things which work, approaches that work. Mr. President.
First of all, I welcome you and good morning. I know many of you have come from very far away from here, and not only that, you must have faced some difficulties on the way as you are coming, stopovers or sleepovers in the airports and so on and so forth, trying to connect from places where you are coming from, which shouldn't otherwise be very far from here. But that again points to some of the problems the continent has, which we need to address. But let me reserve that for another time or another moment. First, I thank you, Nkosana, for putting this together. You've done this kind of thing before, and it's what we need to do, getting people together so that we can have a dialogue, we can discuss issues that have to do with our countries and continents development as well as aspirations of our people. And evidently this kind of story has been there before and for a very long time. We Africans trying to overcome different challenges for many years to do with this development I'm talking about. Many struggles, many theories around what we have needed to do for our country, for our countries, for our continent to be on this unstoppable path as we would want our movement towards the future that people of any country would want to achieve. But I think for me, and maybe as we go along and in answering some of the questions you have raised, which I would suggest maybe we go along, one by one and through interaction and see where we need to be. For me, the main question is every forum, every discussion, whether it is between two people or three, or here in Africa or abroad, wherever we travel and have to interact with the members of other communities from elsewhere, we seem to have been talking about this and in the right way, and ideas come up as to how we need to conduct business or what needs to be done for Africa to overcome the challenges we face or we have faced for a long time. And it is interesting for me because in all these discussions where I have had the opportunity to participate, everybody seems to be saying the right thing. Everybody seems to know and understand what needs to be done. Many are even angry and saying, no, we can't be like this, we can't stay like this, we need to. Really in that room where the discussions are taking place, there is a feeling of hope, of energy, and you think by the time we get out of the room, people will really hit the ground running and you will see things happening. Until another day, another conversation, another very good discussion.
Same conversation.
Same conversation. And it goes on and on. This for me has been the major issue, I think, which we need to address. The other thing I have noted is the blame game that goes on. Finger pointing. It's our leaders, it's our youth, it's our this, it's, then the blame goes around, but we need the responsibility to go around too. We just can't have blame going around and being shared by everybody. We need a sense of responsibility to go around and to show that everybody is doing their part and is sharing, the burden, carrying part of the burden, and all that aimed at making progress. Again, you don't see much of that. Related with that, for me, there is a principle really that is simple. Maybe we need to see the nearer you are to each other, I think the more you need each other. It's just simple principle saying your neighbor. You need your neighbor needs you more than probably people elsewhere. But it keeps growing, but I think the nearer you are to each other, the more you need each other, but needing each other goes a long way and a long distance. But you can imagine a situation where even, let's say, this region, our East African community, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, we live together. We are neighbors, actually, almost same people you'll find. But you will find, some people, you talked about some people coming here for the first time and there hasn't been that kind of interaction before, and which is part of the problem we need to address. But you find people just next door, across the border. They arrive in Kigali today, they go to, say, genocide museum there. They go through, and as they get out, someone says, "You mean these things happened here?" This is a neighbor, somebody across the border, a walking distance almost. This says something.
But they've probably been to New York and London.
Absolutely, many times. So this is another problem. Yeah. Even just knowing, you see, even if maybe they hadn't not been able to visit, they should be able to have read and got interest and said, so this I'm seeing is what I've been reading, You are just confirming. But maybe they haven't even read anything about it. They have never visited. They don't know anything about it. And this is a neighbor. Yeah. It's a big problem. It's part of what we need to address and address in, I'm sure why this gathering is important is, young people drawn from across the continent being together. I'm sure it's to think about the future of the countries they have come from, but also of the continent. And if you were in this room, it's like, as I said last time, it's like a family. A family, there are children in the family. The children need to be given a good upbringing. If you don't do that, then probably the parents will regret why they really never did one thing or the other. Yeah. From the outcome, what they will see and how probably the children will really be messed up, and at the end of the day, they mess up the family as a whole.
Mr. President, if I may pick up a couple of things you just said, which puzzle me also. Yeah. But I also listened carefully to the words you used. You said you have meetings and everybody seems to know or understand. Mm-hmm. The question, I suppose, is do they really know or do they just seem to know? And part of the reason I ask this is also related to the issue of not knowing your neighbor, but knowing a country which is further away. Where do we get our validation for ourselves? Have we been so undermined in terms of self-belief that actually we get our validation from knowing the other and not our neighbor, not ourselves, because we don't believe in ourselves? And when we say we know what needs to be done and we know the solution, could it be we are good at reading books as opposed to really understanding what really needs to be done?
Well, first of all, whether they know or just seem to know, for me, I use they seem to know deliberately because until something is done based on what I saw being said and expressed, then I want to be sure whether you really know or you seem to know. Yeah. So this is, so I, at least on this, I'm also playing very safe. I want to be, I want to be accused of having judged wrongly somebody when they really knew. But for me, the most important thing is if you know and you say what you know and what you need to do, I will take it that way, but I'll wait until that is reflected in what you do that we agree needs to be done. Then the other part, which is very interesting, yes, it is always a part of a conversation you have here ourselves. It's not enough to know. It's equally important or even more important to, based on what you know, to do something that makes a difference, not only for you, but for others. Yeah. Well, it's like you study, you become a medical doctor, but if you don't apply it to make, to treat patients, to deal with the diseases and so on and so forth, and you really don't do anything, what would have been the reason for investing your time and resources and everything in studying medicine? I thought you go there saying, I want to study medicine, not just an end in itself. The end lies really with putting that, yes, applying that. So that's the main point. So there is also, I think, plenty of that you have said, that, and to rest the other point, that people have, talent. If you have a talent and you don't put it to good use,
it might as well not exist.
You may not as well, you didn't need it in the first place. But people with a talent, why not put it to work? Because that's why you have it, or that's why you even developed it. So what we have in Africa, therefore, it has a bit of ideological side to it, because this is really more or less politics or ideology, if you will, that we are talking about. How do we use the talent in the room, or things we have invested in? What was the end goal? What did we want to achieve? Are we doing that? And every time it's around improving individual lives or lives collectively of people. Otherwise it doesn't. So in Africa, there are many things that we need to attend to. There is the individual side, somebody investing, to develop themselves and even develop their talents and acquire a lot, and they are capable of doing much. But two things have to happen, in my view. This person has to be wanting to say, I need to be helpful and useful to myself and my people, the community, my continent. That is a must. If you lack that, then there will be a problem. The other side also is, and which is real but may also be used as an excuse, is that there are times also when there has to be that environment that really allows that person to do something. Otherwise, if that environment is not there, and environment does not depend just on this individual who has the talent to contribute to that being there or to be the one solely responsible for that, it has to come from the community itself. that has to do with the governance issues, with systems, with institutions that will absorb this talent and put it to good use, or allow that talent to be put to good use. So it's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think even the young people, for example, who have developed their talent and so on, will run away from this responsibility and say, well, first thing, somebody here is not doing the right thing, me, I'm going. Because, you can go somewhere else and be useful to yourself, at least in the sense of doing a job and being paid for it, and fine, you have money in your pocket, you can get what you want. Some people call that a good living, but I think there's something lacking. If you could get that good living in your own place, I think you're better off than to just go trying to look for who can buy your talent, and then you live on that. That's why I was saying ideology and politics come in as well.
Can I just push this one of a facilitative environment a little bit? Because sometimes I think that we, as a people, continentally, we are quite naive. And I'll start further out and try to come into the community. You see, if I take, let me start with an example which is completely crazy, but I like to watch nature films. And I watch the behavior of lions and the pride of lions. A pride of lions is a killing machine, absolute killing machine. But the reason why pride of lion is a killing machine is because internally it's also incredibly competitive to the point where the individual that survives becomes a worthy member of the pride. If you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. So the member of the team is being strengthened through the internal competition in order to become a killing machine. It appears to me that most communities have got similar mechanisms for competitive environments which allow expertise and excellence to come through. And that we, coming from especially our extended family system, we tend to protect and almost like discourage excessive competition. But I think where we run the risk is that by doing that, we don't allow real talent to thrive in our communities. The more dangerous bit in my observation is that, and I use the Chinese debate, the Western and Chinese debate in Africa, is that we do not understand that other communities are out to look after themselves, not to look after us. When we interact with them, we seem to think that they are coming to look after us, as opposed to understanding that they've got legitimacy to look after their own people, their own countries. And when they come to us, it's up to us to know what our interests are. And then play in terms of a dynamic with constructive tension